I like the ambiance tonight.
Yeah, it feels like
No,
I guess
time changed, so it's darker outside.
yeah, like a tannic, more like tannic,
Your dome is glowing.
like earthy. You know.
Wow. I don't know how to respond to
I
that.
couldn't either.
What?
Earthy.
Yeah, it's just like an earthy
Did you
feel.
say
You know.
tantric though?
No, tannic. Like just
Tannic.
Like, yeah, like
Can you define tannic?
yeah, like earthy. You know, like just
Tannic. Is tannic a word?
yeah, it's election night.
But is tannic a word?
It is. I've heard it used before. I've used it once or twice myself.
Define it.
That's not important right now.
I mean,
That I like. Why are you calling me on my lack of definitions for words
that you're using?
I'm not sure.
Can you imagine
We wouldn't
only
tell
being
our
able
kids-
to use?
we would ask our
could we
kids
use it in a
to
sentence?
define the word that they're using.
Okay.
We're not
Can you
gonna let them
imagine
literally
living in a
tannic.
world in which you're only allowed
Definition
to
of
use
tannic
words
related
that
to
you understand?
tannin.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tannin-y night. I just
Oh my
feels.
gosh.
No, the bad part is that's kind of remotely like in
It's
pocket.
exactly what I'm saying.
Is
like,
it? Yes.
yeah, that's the thing. And so people don't realize a lot of times that like there's a lot more going on up here than I'm even able to articulate.
No, you.
Yes,
you,
no,
that
you
was
guys-
a blind shot, and you swished.
Well-
you got lucky.
I'd rather be lucky than good. Then I guess, like if that's what we're talking about.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Every Dad podcast right here. Hey, as always, we want to give a big thank you to Highland Park Baptist Church for supporting this. Shout out to Sola Coffee Bar for always letting us just use their space, even when they're not here, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
So, but if you're in the Panama City area, Lynn Haven specifically, but Solar Coffee Bar, man, it's a good place. And then also, What's Up Media, all the lighting and cameras.
Make us look good.
Debo doing all the editing. So, man, we just got a lot of people who are supporting this thing. So we just want to say a huge thank you to them. Even Alexa Anthony.
Yep.
Doing all of our photos.
What's
and
your title? I
Instagrams.
was
gonna say, what's
Is
your
it
business
Is it
name?
Manager Lex?
Manager Lex, yeah. So, but we need you to subscribe and like and all those sorts of things. I don't know what the terminology is, man. I'm just talking.
You nailed it.
Like and
All those
subscribe.
things.
Figure out. Find us on YouTube. If you like us, leave a review. Leave a comment. If
Yeah.
you don't, please just don't.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you have any social media?
I don't have social media, man. So you're not gonna find me on social
You did
media.
play Wordle for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, but that was through a text message.
I know,
you
but
would
have-
send
Have
that
you
out.
have
Is
you
that-
never had social
I
media?
have
Did you get rid of
before.
it?
I got rid of it
When did you get rid of it?
last year.
Why?
I was getting mad, and a lot of time management. I would
Mad at what you
Like
saw,
mad
or
at the
mad
world?
at the time
Like
that
what's
you
happening in the-
spent on it.
Yes. Well, because I mean, think about it, right? Like we're going to talk about priorities in a minute, so that's a great segue there, Blakey boy. Nice. I don't know, man. Just kind of felt convicted. I was spending a lot of time on it. You see people in your life that you know in person, but then you would see them other places, and the stories didn't match, and so I would get a little frustrated.
That's real. Or you would. I've done this a lot, and I currently also am not on social media either. But you'll see like the person, and you're like, oh, I actually know way too much about your life because we've never had an in-person conversation before.
Yeah.
And guess what? I don't necessarily care to start now. Like I've got stuff to do. So, yeah.
I don't know. And just with the, I don't know. I just got rid of it. It wasn't
I've been
productive.
off and on.
It wasn't
I'm on
productive for
currently.
me.
I was off for about a year. Maybe not quite.
And so my
Maybe
wife,
I need to get back off.
My wife still has it. So like grandmas and grandpas that are out of the state, they can still, keep in contact. And
You seem like you guys would. You and Catherine would do like the family social media.
You know
account.
what? So you're like kind of labeling us as like the family that would do like
Clark
I mean,
family.
if you're gonna ask me if I've like thought of creative names if we were to ever make that switch, the answer is yes. So like nailed that, I suppose. But like Thrive with 5.
no.
I was just thinking Clark family, something
Oh, that
a
works.
little simpler.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Clark
All right.
family 5.
Oh, hey, let's talk about priorities.
Yeah, let's get to what's important.
Yeah, let's. Yeah,
No time.
I didn't know how to
See what
work
bites.
that.
That's
in,
great.
but
Let's go.
yeah. But hey, one of the things that we want to do here is have this conversation about things that dads can do. Okay, like we want to make sure that we are good dads, biblical dads in today's culture. And I think priorities is a big deal. I know, Ty, this is kind of your, you're kind of passionate about this, which can't wait to hear some of the things you have to say about priorities with a big family. But, let's have this conversation about priorities. Is priorities a big deal for you guys? Like, do you schedule things out? Do you think about the priorities in your life when it comes to families and children and time management? Like, is that something that's on the forefront of you guys' mind? Like, or is it just kind of one of these fleeting thoughts that we maybe should talk about and maybe kind of manage? Or is it something that you purposefully try to manage in the household as a dad and having a job and being a husband and things like that? So
I'll say it wasn't something that I originally took very seriously. It was kind of something that more or less I realized that I'm having more kids at a pretty significant pace, and that if I don't take my priorities seriously, then I could very easily move into living a very unintentional life. So, like, just to be honest, that's not naturally like, okay, these are my top priorities. I'm going to think about each one, how they relate to everything, and then I'm going to like actually like align my everyday to match those. That was definitely not and is still not, just to be honest, like the way that I naturally work. I've just realized in all seriousness, we had Liam right after Hurricane Michael hit. And so Hurricane Michael hit, obviously, for all of us, that lived here through that, October 10th of 2018. He was born November 12th. And that obviously did, everything was just
you
completely
lost your
crazy.
home in
lost
that
our
storm,
home,
so.
as did so many other people, but lost our home. And because of that, my wife, Catherine, and then Liam, he was supposed to be born here, and he ended up being born at TMH in Tallahassee. And she actually ended up staying in Tallahassee and never moved back until the very end. And then we ended up moving to New Orleans. And so we kind of had like a weird, just chapter of our lives at the very beginning. And then we moved to New Orleans and immediately COVID hits, right?
Yeah.
And so kind of all of the things that, are very important, you get into your rhythm, you get into your systems, and then, boom, it all just kind of just goes crazy again. And so, but it wasn't until the twins where we went, oh my goodness, like we're going to move from 2 to 4. And we're going to just skip the whole 3 phase, where I was like, if I don't get a grip on how I'm spending my time, if I don't get a grip on how I'm spending my money, if I don't get a grip on what's actually important as I'm scaling things back, then I am absolutely going to live a completely unintentional life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just simply exist to get my kids and get myself through the day. And I'm not going to have anything left over for actually living the way that I feel like God wants me to live.
And I'm glad that you said intentional, right? Because this is one of the things that we want to draw out in these conversations, is being very intentional with our walk, being very intentional with our families, our children, our wives. Like, that's what we want. We want to be able to talk about how to be intentional. And I think looking at priorities is pretty intentional, especially when we really do this deep dive on our own life. So
I would say that nobody does it naturally.
Yeah.
Like nobody just accidentally lives a life of priority.
Well, correctly and gets
Correctly.
it right.
Yeah, that's good.
We all
Or
have
replace 'em.
priorities, but right.
yeah,
Maybe I'm jumping ahead here.
go
but
for it.
When you went to 4 kids and feel like you established some sort of set priorities, the correct priorities in your family, did you feel like you were getting more out of it and having a better use of your time, even though there were 4 kids, as maybe even before when you had just 1 or 2 kids?
I would say
did things get easier almost when you set those
in
those
a way,
priorities?
it's actually, there's a quote that says, like, sometimes 10x is actually easier than 2x. Like, like 10x hard is actually sometimes easier than 2x hard. And I would say that there's a certain, truth to that, just because with 1 and then 2, I was like almost trying to get back to the way that I had lived before. I was like, oh, okay, like it's over. We've like my wife's done nursing. Like we're going to kind of try and get back to living our life, but just having the baby with us as well. And then by the time we had a tribe, it was like, okay, every single thing has to look different now. The things that I'm even dreaming towards, like the way that I'm doing all of the other things. And I found a system called it was just the pillars. And so priorities or pillars, but it was basically just, the structural concept of like, what are the things that are keeping your life up?
Yeah.
And so looking at the Bible, looking at, where I was and what I wanted to make a priority, I kind of came up with 5 different pillars. And so the first pillar obviously was God, a relationship with God. The second pillar was marriage. So I want to live a life that, has a good marriage. I don't want to get to the end and just go, I don't even really know my wife, but like have a really healthy marriage. The next one was obviously my children. I want to live and make the most of the time that I have with my children, the time that God's given me with my children. And then from there, I want to move into my ministry. I want to make the most of the time that God's given me to make disciples that make disciples. And then my 5th one is, physical health and some of those other smaller hobbies and that sort of thing.
Yeah, mine too. Physical health. That's what I'm.
Hey, you're getting there.
I was going to say, like, for sure.
That donut today didn't prove
and
that.
So going back to your question, it's helped me to reestablish and filter everything that I'm doing through my whys, through my pillars. And if they don't fit in my pillars, and I'm not saying I do this perfectly, but if they don't fit in my pillars, there's at least kind of a sounding board or a baseline to come back to go, okay, this doesn't belong because it doesn't match what I've said is important to me.
Yeah. I think it's not a secret by now that we've sort of set the foundation of this podcast on a biblical foundation, right? So,
Spoiler
when we're
alert.
talking about priorities,
Yeah.
it's like, and especially in the circles that we're in, of course, the default answer is God first. Like God is going to come before everything, and yes, that's correct. I think it's easy to put that one first, rightly so. The one that I think I'm seeing more frequently get mixed up are those 2 and 3 that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Right. We're
so
and
true.
this is a podcast about being fathers and
Yep.
trying to get fatherhood right, but that doesn't mean putting your kids above your marriage.
Right.
And we've alluded to this. We've talked a lot about all of our awesome wives that we have here. We're all super fortunate and lucky, but especially in today's culture, I'm amazed at just how many times that gets flipped, and we're living vicariously through our kids, or we're trying to live the life that we did not have and wish we had, or the dreams that we want through our kids, and we're neglecting and forgetting our marriage. One thing that was sort of indicative of this is there was a social media trend. I think this has gone on several times, maybe just a rerun version of this I saw recently, is they were asking these random people, hey, list in order of most important to least important. And this is a terrible game to play probably either way, but it was pretty
Sounds
sad to
fun,
watch.
though. Let's
They
do
said,
it.
okay, your mother, your wife, and your daughter. List 1, 2, and 3 in terms of importance. And it was pretty sad how many of them went mom. I mean, I'm talking like dads,
grown
like
men.
grown
Yeah.
men, mom, daughter, wife.
Yeah. Wow.
Way wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like we that to me, I know that's at the top,
Yeah.
so it's easy to get to, but 1, that should be solid.
Yeah.
Those 2 and 3 though, are too often mixed up.
Well, and I think it's one thing also to say those are my priorities. And I think what you're alluding to, it's another thing altogether to actually like live that out on a day in and day out basis where, like you said, it's very easy to get in this stage in life where we have young kids and things, like it's very easy to get through the end of a day, have no energy left to talk with my wife about how her day was. And, and it's kind of this running joke, like where, especially on a Wednesday, so working at the church, a lot of times I'll be preaching or whatever, and then I'll get home, kids are down, or we'll put the kids down, and then she says, well, how's your day? And her thing, what she means by that is, I would like for you, in a loving way, to run through every detail and relive your day, because I have waited all day to talk to an adult.
It's now 11
I have spent
p.m.
I have
and
spent
wanna do
all
that.
day talking and dealing with children on a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old level.
Sure.
I would like to have some intellectually stimulating conversation with an adult. And I'm going, that's all I've done today.
Right.
And now I'm in a choice where I go, I would like to go to sleep so that I have energy again for the kids. But if I don't do that,
Yeah.
then if I do that, then it's going to sacrifice the time that, and obviously she's very gracious in that. But that's a very real, struggle that we have on a consistent basis.
When I think, and going back to what Blake was saying, it's like common to get the priorities out of alignment with kids before spouse. Kids put stress on it. Like Carly and I, we'd been married for over 5 years before we had our first child. And I don't know, kind of felt like we were doing life well. Priority wise, I had just come out of like me and God trying to work some things out, in the sense of I just didn't really understand why some things weren't happening how I wanted to. I thought my plan was better than his at the time, basically. And so coming out of that, me and him were in a really good spot. And then about a year after that, that's when Lucy came along, and it was almost like everything was rock and rolling. I had like my time with him in the mornings. Like I felt really close to him, felt, me and Carly were on the same page on everything. And then the kid adds the stressor on it, and you're almost kind of like trying not to get the priorities out of alignment, but just trying to figure out how to keep it going with this added pillar, as you were saying.
Yep.
Like, this is new to me, so now I'm trying to figure out how to keep 1 and 2 going good, and trying to figure out how to do the third one well. And so because it's a stressor, I feel like it's easy just to make that number one. Like put all eggs in that basket. All right, this is the thing that needs my most attention, so therefore I don't give any attention to anything else.
And just because something's getting the most of your time doesn't mean it has to be the highest priority, right? We can have a priority, and oftentimes should, that's higher than another, even though that lower priority might, like kids obviously, would demand a lot more of your time. So.
That's a good point, but I would push back on that just so that we can have some genuine conversation. Let's play this for a second. So from somebody else's perspective, can you not tell a lot about a person's priorities by where the majority of their time is going?
No doubt. I'm not saying it's not a qualifier. I'm saying that doesn't automatically. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to, but to me, that doesn't automatically say that's my top priority.
Because of how much time.
Because time alone, that's a great indicator. I would say for sure. I don't think it's the only one though.
Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure. And back to your point, Rob. I mean, what you were talking about. I think I actually just learned this about plants. I don't know if you guys know this about plants or not. I've started to plant a couple. Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome.
Ryan came over one day and helped me, and I live in a neighborhood that has a lot of homes. And I would say that so far, our house has the best front garden area of anyone that I've seen. There's actually been random people that stop by and they go, "That's cute. See, honey, this is what I want." I'm like, well,
good.
I know a guy, so it feels great.
That got me.
But when a plant dies, or like when a part of a leaf dies, did you know that like the best thing to do is to pull that off as quickly as you can, because the plant itself actually like pushes all of its energy to try and revive that one plant? Did you know that?
My wife knows all that stuff.
Okay, well, it's okay.
I
I say the same thing. I say between me and my wife, we know everything. Ask me anything if I don't know it, and my
She's
wife's
got that
not here, it's
green
because she knows it.
thing.
The reason why I'm saying that, though, is because a lot of times when you have, especially a newborn, or you have kind of a new challenge in life, you take all of your energy, all of your reserves, and you push it into the thing that's taking the most of your time, and you have absolutely nothing left. And, that's kind of where we get when you're out of balance, or when you have your priorities in the wrong spot, or you're putting too much of your time into one thing, then everything else suffers as a result of that. And so I would be interested to know like what your thoughts, or what y'all's thoughts are on like, why is it, we've talked about pillars, we've talked about, the things that are important to us. What is the consequence of getting your priorities out of alignment? Like, what are the practical consequences of
and I'll
that for a
speak to
father?
that, thinking through priorities in my own life, what am I going to, I'm going to prioritize the things that I value, right? Like, we're going to talk about the things that we value. We're going to spend time. We're going to spend money. We're going to exert that effort, that energy towards the things that we value. And, when when we live in that space of, all right, I'm going to value my relationship with the Lord, right? Everything else is a byproduct of that. So if I'm spending time, and I may not spend hours on the day with the Lord in devotion or prayer, but if everything I'm doing is a byproduct of me spending time with the Lord, then all of a sudden I think the priorities are going to fall in line, because you've spent that time, you're valuing that, and all of a sudden you start to see how you can value your wife, you value your children, you value your job, you value the space that God has put you in for the purpose that God has put you in. And so for me, like, where does that go wrong? Like, when I'm away from that, and all of a sudden that's not a value because I'm not spending that time, then the byproduct of that is my priorities are shifted to selfish priorities. Like, I want to make sure that I get to do this, or my attitude changes towards whoever, my focus changes. I replace one priority with something else because at first I'm not valuing that time alone with God. And so practically, like, I mean, the relationships with spouse sometimes is hindered, maybe not publicly, but in communication and communion and intimacy may be hindered. How quickly we get upset or frustrated at our kids and how we react to that. Sometimes grace and patience and mercy is not really there when it should be. And then all of a sudden that quickly starts to spiral into so many other things. For me, if I'm just gonna be vulnerable, like, for me, it starts to get in my headspace to where I'm perceiving things that aren't there. I'm perceiving conversations that have happened. I'm perceiving the way people view me differently, all because, like, I've shifted my priority a little bit to where I'm focused on different things. So going back to, all right, I'm valuing my time alone with the Lord. All of a sudden my priorities are in place. Then I am spending time with my wife. I am prioritizing her time, her needs, her desires. I want her to succeed. I want her to be a good mom. I want her to be a good wife. I want her to enjoy time alone. I want her to be able to have time with her friend. So I'm going to prioritize her needs. I want my kids to be successful. I want my kids to have what they want. I'm going to prioritize what they need. I want them to want to spend time with their dad. I want them to, you know what I mean? So I'm prioritizing those things, and, but I go back to the first thing. When that first thing's not, then that's when that shift kind of happens and starts to tumble.
I like what you're saying about, your top priority being your relationship with the Lord and everything else being a byproduct of that. So another way you might look at that would be through the lens of what we're worshiping. So if you want to know what your priorities are, just look at what you're worshiping.
Yeah,
so when two things are in conflict, so maybe it's not a byproduct, but when one priority is in conflict with a lower priority, are you choosing that higher priority?
Yeah,
that's good.
And it's common to the human experience, whether you know the Lord or not, that you're going to worship something.
Yeah, we're good at it.
Yep. Galatians 4:8 says, "Formerly, when you did not know God, you were enslaved to those that by nature are not God." So even before you knew Him, you were enslaved, which I know is a difficult word, but you were mastered by something. Like something is going to be your master. Could be a good thing, could be a negative thing, but we're all mastered by something. And so again, it's a great revealer as to what our priorities are when we figure out what is it that I'm worshiping.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I cut you off, Ty.
No, you're good. I was just going to say the best way I've heard that explained is what is it that when it calls, you come running?
Yeah.
So, like, whenever blank calls, you come running. Whatever that is, you're enslaved to.
Or
you're a master.
Yeah, or like you want to know somebody's priorities, you see where their money goes, where their time goes, what they're talking about, and that's a really good indicator of. And so, getting back to dads, I think we've replaced some of those. Let's selfishly, I love golf, and it would at one time, like, it was easy for me to do what I wanted go. It didn't matter what was going on. If I wanted to play golf, I was going to go play golf. Well, I prioritized that over other things. And so it's easy to see. I just think sometimes as dads, we replace the priorities that the Bible tells us with those selfish priorities, and it just tends to harm the family in the long run.
So I think that's a perfect point that transitions into a couple of questions that I've written down that have been really helpful for me, and I've kind of called them my like self audit, or like, okay, when I'm realizing, number one, are my priorities out of whack? Number two, how do I get back when they are? And I think what you just said, before I move into that real quick, super valuable, and maybe even something that we haven't hit on yet, and that a different kind of thought, and that is, we are naturally designed to lead. Men are naturally designed to lead. We will lead what we feel confident in leading. And so for some of us, that may be something very, we naturally start and want to spend time doing things that make us feel valuable. For a lot of people, that's a hobby or something that we're good at or that we're better at than other people. If we, and that's a way that we can still feel like our life or our time has meaning, and there's some pride involved in that. And so a lot of times when it comes to these bigger responsibilities that God has given us, by not making them a priority, we have lost the skill in doing them. It's not that we necessarily even think they're not valuable. We
Right.
just don't know how to do them.
Yeah.
And because we haven't taken the time to learn how to do them, we have stopped implementing them into our life. And so we've lost a vision for what that's even supposed to look like. And so
Yeah.
when it gets difficult, we run to do other things
Yeah.
that are easy,
Yeah.
that make us feel the same way that God has designed leading well to make us feel.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a super valuable thing. But a couple of questions I think that help you, assuming that you adopt these pillars, God, marriage, children, ministry, or, work, and then some of those hobbies or those things that are bettering yourself. Like, number one, how much time do I actually spend with God? So a lot of times when I'm looking at my life and I'm starting to realize that there's a lack of joy, or there's a lack of vision, or, there's maybe some sin that's starting to creep in, I go, how much time am I actually spending with God? Because usually that's correlated pretty directly to the issue at hand. I go, wow, I really have not spent as much time with God. And we all know how easy it can be to allow busyness or laziness or, whatever that is, even in the name of good things, to creep in and kind of distract that. So the next thing is, when I'm stressed, what do I turn to? That's a really good indicator of where my priorities are. When I'm stressed, do I turn to God? Do I ask my wife for help, or do I just run off and cope with it? And it doesn't even have to be with some bad thing like a substance or whatever it is.
Right.
It can be, golf or the gym or, some hobby like, I don't know what, those are pretty much the only two. And
You're a real big golfer.
and I can hit a golf ball a long way one time. And then another good question is, does my family feel loved or supported?
Yeah.
And so when I'm actually being honest with myself, and that's not something that I always want to raise my hand and go, or have somebody ask me, but I can do a pretty good self audit on that and go, okay, does my wife, does she actually feel loved and supported, right? And sometimes it's like, no, how could she? I haven't been there. I haven't been around. My kids, they're all out of control, and it's because I haven't actually taken the time to love them. I've implemented the discipline without the time and without the love, and so there's a lack of relationship there.
If your wife's like my wife, they're gonna tell you.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Yeah.
tell
And
you,
she-
hey, I'm not a priority, and your kids will tell you too.
Right. Yep.
They may not come out and say, hey, Dad, you're not treating me as a priority right now, but they're gonna tell you in some sort of way.
Yep.
My little 14-year-old is very creative in the way that he tells me these things, but they're going to tell you because they notice,
Yeah.
and and we've said this before, they're watching every
single thing.
stinking thing that we do.
Yep.
And, the way we respond, the way we react, the way that we, the byproduct of our life they're watching every moment of that. And
100%.
yeah.
And the last one was, do my actions reflect the values that I want my children to emulate?
I don't want to talk about that one.
So, and that's a difficult one, but at the end of the day, like,
Yeah.
my kids are imitating me. Like,
Yeah.
when they're imitating me, are they looking more like Christ?
Yeah.
Or are they not? I think it was actually Charles Spurgeon that said, train up a child in the way that he should go, but be sure that you too are actually going down that direction.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And I think that's a super important thing. In the beginning, you were like, "Oh no, that's the Bible," I'm sure. But
I mean, I
he
kind of
twisted it a
was
little
I
bit.
was like, I mean, Spurgeon did quote the Bible quite a bit. No, that's good. Like, all right, so practically, okay?
Yeah.
Like, we've talked all these theory things, okay? But practically, if Blake, all right, let's go to you. You're giving me this stern look right now. If somebody were to, if a dad, father, I guess it's the same thing, husband, man, were to walk up to you and go, Blake, man, I need help getting my priorities right. Like, what would you tell them? What's a takeaway that the wonderful people listening to this Every Dad podcast, like, what are you going to tell somebody that says, hey, I don't even know where to start. What do I do? I know I caught you off guard on that one.
Well, the obvious answer is the Bible, but I think in most cases, are we assuming you said dad, right? So
Yeah.
they have a family.
Yeah.
I would turn as much of the attention away from yourself first of all.
That's good.
That's real good.
So it's really easy to get in your own bubble and things are spinning and where do I start? What do I do?
Yeah.
Well, get the attention away from you and on someone else, the most important people in your life.
Yeah. Rob, what you got to say to that?
Well, I go back to kind of
You
what you
can't
started.
you can't take his
You're not
answer.
allowed to say what he
You
said.
said the Bible, but it's like we don't have to aimlessly like guess. Like we have a guide.
Yeah.
And so like looking at this and trying to prepare for this, I couldn't get away from Deuteronomy 6, like love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your strength.
Yeah.
So he's first. Love him with everything that you are.
Yeah.
Right after that, it says, but teach these diligently to your kids. So make an effort for them to know this. And so like, I remember growing up, like we didn't sit down as a family and be like, all right, everybody, we're going to read our Bible. We're going to like, what are we reading today? But I don't remember a morning Dad's Bible not being open and sitting on his armchair. We had already been there reading the Bible. And like right now, like we're doing story time at night, bedtime stories. Like we'll read Bible stories. But right now with their ages, like for them to hear me pray for them, over them. Couple days ago, one of them was sick, and just like I could feel him calm down, like in my arms. Like I could feel him just calm down as soon as I started praying over him, that God would help him not feel sick anymore, that he would quit having the stomach pains, and like I could feel him just like physically calm going over him. And so just to know like it's real to me to the point where like I know that they need help. When I need help, I'm going to God in it. And so again, I'm looking forward to the time where I have to sit down with the Bible and explain to them and answer their questions. But right now, just in that simple, like they know that their dad believes in God enough to go to him for them.
Yeah.
Well, and I would even go ahead. You got something to say, Ty?
No.
Okay.
I was just going to say, to quote the Troll King from Frozen 2,
gosh.
sometimes when you don't know what to do, all you can do is the next right thing. So I would say in all of those pillars, in all of the...
Rob just poured his heart
I was
out.
hoping you were going to ask me, so I didn't have to do it myself, because there's a fine line
Yeah.
between, oh, wow, that's a humorous answer, and you
can
just
see it on your face.
submitted that onto your...
Frozen Frozen quote on their bingo
Problem
card.
is,
You win.
99% of the people listening know exactly what part of the movie that's from.
Yeah. All right. So, but I also think maybe practically it's okay as men to maybe take some time and really do a deep dive on yourself. Like really just take 30 minutes or an hour, and whether you type it in your phone, write it out on a sheet of paper, I don't know. like just start to go, all right, where am I? Like how some of those questions that you ask, how am I doing in that? Like, where is my time going? Where is my money going? Where are my thoughts? Like we don't even talked about thoughts. Sometimes thoughts are, you're thinking so much about other things you're not even vocalizing, right? Like you could be talking to your wife about something, prioritizing your wife, but you're thinking about something else. So, I mean, that's a whole nother dynamic. But I mean, sit down and it's okay to take some time for yourself and really just do some self-examination and sit back and go, all right, God, show me where I'm wrong. Show me where I need some repentance, or show me, and then you just start writing those. I mean, I think practically that's a great start. And I love what you said about, as fast as you can, somebody else. And I mean, that's a great start.
Yep, that's really good. I would say to say in those 5 pillars, take one thing that's helped me a lot to kind of get out of the rut, because it gets into a big thing, but like set one very easy goal.
Yeah.
Set one very easy goal, very tangible, low-hanging fruit, like T-ball goal in every area that you're saying is important to you, and then accomplish it. Because when you do that, you are reinstilling, because what happens in our brain is we go, I can't. And we start to just very slowly inch towards that narrative that says, okay, I can.
Yeah.
I'm capable of this. And over a long period of time, it's not a light switch. It's something that's built. Then we can get back into, the driver's seat of what God's created us to do, which is lead in those areas well.
I like that a lot. I mean, because it's so easy to have all these big visions of like what we picture ourselves, or like how well we can picture ourselves doing something, but we never, not only do we never get there, like we never actually start moving in that direction. So I think unless you set some sort of small goals that are achievable, like just get moving in that direction.
Yep. That's what the Troll King would say.
No. All right. So we're God first, right? And hey, if you're watching or listening and you need some sort of resource for this, like, man, type a comment, hit us up. We will help you get resources to do some sort of devotion. Maybe you need a Bible. We'll send you a Bible. Like, man, Blakey Boy is loaded with cash. He will buy you one and send it to you.
News to me.
News to you.
That's news to me. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then, husbands, prioritize your wife.
Yep.
Prioritize your kids. Wife first, then the kids. And, yeah.
I love you, Mom. I didn't mean to throw you under the bus there.
It's okay.
Ranking my three rankings.
All right. Well, hey, we did it.
Nice.
Hey, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening right here on the Every Dad Podcast. We'll see you next time.